Okay, so from where we left off, we had just started importing some images, and right now our game just has meteors coming straight down. So what I'll do for this one is we're going to start to rotate our meteors. It's going to be kind of a long video just because there's kind of a lot that goes into it, and I don't want to section it off and lose that flow. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is we're going to go over to our class, which is right here. All right. And what we'll do is we're going to have to think about this, right? All right. So every single time that we display the image, it's the same image that we're displaying coming straight down. Now, for us to rotate it, we want to have the rotation occur after a certain amount of time. So let's say over here in our class and in our attributes, in our init definition here, let's do this and say self dot, let's call it last rotation. Okay, and it's gonna be pygame.time.getTicks. Okay, now this will keep track of the time, the number of milliseconds. Okay, so it keeps track of time in milliseconds. All right, and in addition to that, when we rotate an object, okay, we're going to be using the transform, so the pygame.transform.rotate function. We'll be using that, and when we rotate, there's a couple of things, right? There's a degree, and then there's the speed that we want to rotate it. So to do that, we will create a new method. So let's go define rotate. All right, and let's see what we have here. Okay, so we're gonna create a new thing here called self dot, let's use rotation degree, and we're gonna set this equal to 0. So this is the initial degree of rotation. Okay, so right now we're not even turning it at all. And then let's do self dot rotation speed. Okay, so this would be the speed that we're doing it, and let's just do it maybe 5 degrees every time. Okay, so down here we'll say okay, we're gonna do current time, and again we'll call this pygame.time.getTicks. Okay, and I'll explain why we're doing that. And actually, I'll explain this right now. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just add this in. You don't have to add this in at all. Print self.last rotation. Just wanted to show you something, and then print the current time. I'll just explain how this works. Okay, and then I'll just leave a space real quick. So when I go to run this, here's what happens. Okay, blah 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 blah. Oh, JK, nothing happened because I never even called this function. So let's do that. Okay, let's try this over again. All right, so I'm gonna try to exit out this game. So many things happening. Okay, here we go. So do you see the top number here, 740? Okay, and notice that that's exactly the same for each one. So the way that is the print self.last rotation. That was the first thing that we initialized here. So it started counting the number of milliseconds here from when it was called at 740 milliseconds, and then current time was a new variable, and we were also getting keeping track of that time as well. And we printed that, and then we printed a space. That's what the space is. So notice that the time intervals are increasing, right, every single time. And so the way we want to use this is we're saying, okay, well, if the current time, which is this bottom part here, the second number in each of these rows, okay, if the current time minus the initial time is, let's say, greater than 50 milliseconds, which is pretty fast. So we're gonna just go ahead and take this off. Okay, so we'll say if the current time minus self.last rotation is greater than 50 milliseconds, okay, then what we want to do is we'll say rotate the meteor. Okay, now the first thing we have to do is we have to set self.last rotation equal to current time. You're probably wondering, why is that? Okay, well, self.last rotation, this was the first time that's this number up here. Okay, it started keeping track the moment it was called, and then now we have current time, which was keeping track of all these bigger numbers. Okay, now once we have a difference in these numbers, we're gonna set our last rotation to our current time, so that now the current time becomes our new like initial time, and then we wait again until 50 milliseconds has passed before we rotate again, and then we set that time like at that instant when it's greater than 50 millisecond, that becomes our new initial time, and then we wait 50 milliseconds and then we rotate again. Okay, so that's what this line does. Okay, from there we have to do let's see. Well, we want to rotate the image. So self.image, we can probably call this one transform.rotate. Okay. It says, now on this application, it's going to open up on this IDE. It says a surface. We're going to do it to the screen. I'm sorry, not the screen. We're rotating the image. Apologies. And the angle is going to be that self.rotation degree. Okay. Now we have set this initially up here to 0. So technically, if I were to run this, nothing would happen because I'm not rotating anything, right? But right above that line, we're going to go ahead and say self.rotation degree, DEGREE, plus equals self.rotation speed. Okay, so this is going to be like, if this is 0, then after every iteration, we will be adding the rotation speed, which in this case is 5. So we'll be rotating 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on and so forth. Okay, now don't run this program because I think this might really slow down your computer. Actually, I think it might slow down mine so much so that my thing might freeze. Let me just show you what happens if we do that. Okay, so here we go. Bam, gone. And let me just go ahead and change this to 200. And I want you to look at the images. I know it's a little bit small, but try to look at the images, especially on the lines on the outside. Okay, so I try to slow it down and look at the lines on the outside. And I know it's so quick, but what you should be able to see is that it's starting to get like jagged and like missing pieces of it. That's because as of now, we're trying to rotate the same image over and over. So like we're taking this image, we're transforming itself, then setting it back as the image we want to use and rotating it. Then we're rotating it again, setting it back as the image we want to use. And every single time that you keep doing that, you kind of like lose some of that image. It's like when you write on a piece of paper and then you go and you make a copy of that, and then you make a copy of the copy, and then you make a copy of that copy. Eventually you're going to start losing a lot of the pixels from the original letter. And so that's what we want to kind of do here, is that we want to avoid that. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to come back up here, and instead of a self.image, which we do need to have, we're going to just go in the front of that and put original image. Okay, so this will be the original image we will use to rotate. And then below that, we'll say self.image, okay, because we definitely need that. And we're going to make a copy of it. So the reason why is because every single time that we want to rotate, we'll use the original image, right? It's a nice brand new image, and we'll rotate it a certain amount of degrees, and then have that equal our self.image. So this is going to be self.original image, okay, dot copy. Oops, I'm not used to this keyboard. Dot copy. Okay, so let me explain how this works. Okay, down here we keep track of time. When it's time to rotate, we could probably fix this back to 50. So here we have this piece. Now the way that this is going to work is we need to make one edit here. We're saying that the new image is going to be a rotation of the original image by a certain amount of degrees. So if in the beginning we have 5, okay, right, 0 plus 5 will give you 5. I'm rotating the original by 5. So behind the scenes, I'm turning it by 5 and then setting it equal to self.image. Then on the next iteration, this would become 10, right, because I'm adding a 5 here. So now when I get to this line, okay, I'm saying self.image is now going to be a transformation of the original. Okay, remember, I'm not making a copy of another copy. I'm not rotating the same exact image that I just used. I'm rotating the original now. Okay, that was initially like this, but now I'm rotating it 10 degrees. Next iteration, this becomes 15. I'm starting with the original, and now I'm just rotating it 15 degrees. So it's kind of the same thing as rotating the last image by 5 every single time. But in actuality, I'm just adding 5 here and rotating the original once, not over and over and over again. So that's what that's about. Okay. Now if I go ahead and I run this, might not be all that great. Okay, but you see that now it's you're gonna notice something else. So now watch the images. What do you notice about them? It's not really a good rotation. It looks like it's like knocking off of something, right? It's kind of really jagged. And that brings us to the next thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just die there. All right. So here's what we're gonna do with that. Let me see. I think pretty sure I have something here. Image rotation, perfect. So I had written up something here. I'm just gonna go ahead and run this program. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. All right. So initially, I had made a separate program to explain this. Okay. Here's our image, and here is the self.rect, which is the rectangle around the image. This is what we're really going to be focusing on. Okay. So if I go back now, and let's just say that I go ahead and take this off, and I run this piece here. Okay. We have this, and that is kind of like what was happening in our other program just now, is that they were all falling down and looked like they were just like going like this, knocking down every single time, right? The reasoning behind that looks like so. So let me just go ahead and just close this off, okay, and bring us over here. When we started off with the image, this green dot is going to represent the center of the meteor, okay, of the original meteor image. Then we have the rectangle. And when we had that self.rect.center, that was the center. It created a rectangle centered upon the meteor. That's the red dot. Okay. Now, when this meteor rotates, okay, the center of the meteor image is now different. It's here, but the rectangle that we were using initially, it's still placed at this center. Right, but the problem is that now you can see that this image is out of the rectangle, okay? And then when it comes back in, it looks like it's going good, and then as it continues to rotate, it goes back out. See, the center is all the way here, but we're still using that initial center of the rectangle, because that's what it's all about, right? We're moving the images by moving these rectangles that are built around the images, okay? So what we need to do is, instead of moving this piece here, we need to create a rectangle that's flexible depending on the rotation of the meteor. So here, like in this case, we would create maybe a wider rectangle because this is now turning, so it's wider, and we need a way to do that. So we do that by this little piece, and of course we're going to go ahead and I will show you. Actually, you know what? Just erase it. Let's just do it together. Okay. So this is what we had in the original program where we left off. What we're going to do is we're going to have old center, okay, any variable, and we'll have this self.rect.center. Now, what I should have done is, and I'll just do it now, I'm going to actually cut this out and place it here. Okay, so as we go through the line, let's just start really quickly from up here. Okay, we have the meteor, right? We took a copy of it. We placed a rectangle around it, so we have it centered, and then we're going to set the center of the original here to this variable called old center. Then we created a new image, that new image being the rotated meteor. Okay, so then we need to get a rectangle around that. Dot get rect, and then we will find self.image. Sorry about that. Okay, self.rect.center, and we're gonna set this center to the old center. Okay, again, I'll go through that again. All right, but here's what we have so far. Okay, so we'll have this piece, right? And notice that the rectangle is going to be changing. Okay, now if I'm going to remove this rectangle around it, because we don't actually need it there, I'm just going to just blank it out from where I wrote it. And if I was to rerun this, you'll see it's not like knocking, it's actually turning pretty smoothly for the most part, right? It's turning pretty smoothly for the most part. Now to just compare that with this, and I don't need that, what I need is that. All right, if we go through this, here's the old center is this original piece right here, okay, right there in the center. Then we had a new image. See the self.image equals PyGame.transform.rotate. This is the new image that we just rotated, let's say this one. Okay, then we created a rectangle around this, only this is what we were dealing with. This is now going to be the new rectangle around this rotated image, right? It fits it perfectly. And then we're going to set the center of that to the original center, which was directly in the middle. So we need this to create a nice flexible rectangle around our image, right? So that be there, and we will take this knowledge. So let's actually just copy this out of here, and we can put this right here. Okay, so if you were following along and you were typing, then fantastic. If not, totally just pause this and just enter that right in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and just play it and run it, and we'll have, see how nicely they're falling. They're falling nice and smooth. Okay, it still works. Oh, we're gonna have to throw some explosions in there. Okay, and you know, if you want to increase the rotation of them, you can just go ahead and just make this 25. All right, let's see. Much better. Okay, so now it looks like they're really falling down. You can make them a little slower if you want. I'm actually happy with this. Okay, so that is going to be it just for this video. See if you can understand the concept. Let me know if it was explained well. Give it a like if you like it.